Hi, today we're talking about CCM8, Unit 1, Lesson 1, squaring a number. So if you have something that looks like this is red, 3 squared. The base is 3, the exponent is 2, and the entire thing altogether is what we call a power, 3 squared. So Vic number 1, that stands for a very important concept, number 1. To square a number, multiply the number by itself, not by 2. For example, we have 3 squared. That does not mean 3 times 2. That means 3 times itself. So 3 times 3, which is 9. We can take a picture of a square, and that's basically what we're doing. We're squaring numbers. So if I took a 5 by 5 square and I counted all of the pieces that it would make 25 pieces. Same thing with this one down here. This is an 8 by 8 square. Altogether, I've made 64 little pieces. Sometimes when you're figuring out area, this is what you'll do. Area of squares is just 5 by 5. So this would have a square area of 25 square units. That's where all that comes from. We could also make a list of all the numbers, not all the numbers, but all of the main numbers that we use, 1 through 15, and square them. This you probably already done. You probably know these off the top of your head, but it's always good to have a list handy, especially when we're estimating square roots. That's going to be an important piece of knowledge to have handy. So, 1 squared, that's 1 times itself. So 1 times 1 is 1. 2 squared, 4. 3 squared, 9. 4 squared, 16. So here's a list of all of what we call perfect squares through 15. Also, some good ones to know is 20 squared is 400. 100 squared is 10,000. Go ahead and take a second and fill out your list on your paper right now. Okay, what about negative numbers? Negative numbers, when we square them, we're multiplying that number times itself. So in the case of negative 1 squared, that's negative 1 times negative 1. A negative times a negative is a positive. So negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 3 squared is 9. So the products of a negative times negative is a positive. So these numbers end up being the same product as the ones we saw before. That's really special. Could we model this scenario with squares? No, because this is unrealistic to have negative measurements. So if I tried to make a square that's negative 5 by negative 5, that's really not practical. So we don't really go there with negative numbers. Also, just a little side note, something you're really going to want to pay attention to. Negative 1 inside parentheses squared is different than negative 1 without the parentheses squared. If you don't believe me, go ahead and try it in your calculator. You'll get 2 different results. This is because of order of operations. Your calculator uses order of operations to solve the problems that you're typing in. If you do not use parentheses, your calculator will actually calculate the exponent first, then multiply by a negative later. So if you ever use your calculator to type in exponents, and you make sure you use parentheses, because this shows your calculator that what you mean for it to do is to multiply negative 1 times negative 1. So be very careful when you're using your calculator and negative exponents. Okay, I hope you learned something.